Hello everyone, this is Sodhi from CAAN Wings Consultants Private Limited. Welcome to the weekly YouTube session. Today I will be talking to you about a very common concern and a very popular question that is being asked over and over and over. And the question is, when will I get my 491 visa invitation? So here's what I have to say in answer to this question. First of all, please understand that there are two kinds of 491 visas. One is a 491 relative sponsored and the other is a 491 state sponsored. Now, majority of the people who apply for a 491 visa are applying for a 491 state sponsored visa, wherein they get nomination from the states in Australia. A small percentage of people are nominated by their relatives and they therefore apply for a 491 relative sponsored. It is essential that those who are applying for a 491 relative sponsored visa must have their occupations listed on the MLTSSL. Therefore, if somebody who wants to apply for a 491 relative sponsored visa because they have their relatives living in Australia, but their occupation is listed either on the STSOL or on the ROL, they will not be eligible to apply for a 491 relative sponsored. So when we look at the invitation rounds held by the Department of Home Affairs, which used to be done more frequently earlier and now it will be done on a quarterly basis, that is after every 3 months, the results were being displayed for two visas, one being the 189, that is skilled independent visa, and the other being the 491 relative sponsored visa. So please first of all understand that when we're talking about 491, here we're only talking about 491 relative sponsored. Since in a relative sponsored visa, there is no state involved wherein a state nominates the applicants based on their specific set of criteria. Therefore, they select the applications based on the higher scoring applications. Now, I had read somewhere a question by one of the clients that said the minimum point score for 491 was 85 in the latest invitation round. So it may not have been the round held in October, it could have been prior to that, but I'm just giving it as an example for you to understand. So when a person hears this, that the minimum point score for 491 was 85 in the last invitation round, one tends to think, okay, so 491 is a visa like the 189 where we need to work on increasing our point score so that we better our chances of getting an invitation. Please understand that this particular sentence or this particular statement that in the last round the invitation point score was 85 refers to relative sponsored 491. It was for those whose occupations were listed on the MLTSSL. They had an eligible relative in Australia, and obviously the DHA was looking at picking the higher scoring applicants, and the score at which they picked up the applicants was 85. This certainly does not mean that a 491 visa applicant needs to have 85 or 80 scores. Please let me remind you here that for a 491 state-sponsored visa, the minimum point score required is 65. And I think this has been made amply clear by the state of Tasmania that has opened recently. So in their list of criteria, they very categorically mention that the point score we need from the applicants is 65. So please rest assured that it's not going to go above 65 and you don't have to unnecessarily work on your score. Yes, a lot of times people feel that probably, if they get a higher score, we will probably be invited. And since it doesn't work through an invitation by the DHA, only 189 and 491 relative sponsored works that way. So a person who's looking at nomination should look at meeting the criteria of the state instead of a higher point score. Now, let me again support it with an example. NSW is about to open up shortly, and the criteria is already out. So let's say for offshore applicants, they're looking for those with 5 years of work experience at least and a score of 65. So let's say somebody who's sitting at 85 points but has 3 years of work experience, would he be eligible for nomination by South Australia, NSW? The answer obviously to that is a no. Therefore, you need to focus on meeting the criteria. Do not unnecessarily work on getting a higher score. Now, there's another thing I'd like to clarify here, and that is it is a different thing to get a nomination invitation from a state and an invitation to apply for a visa from the Immigration Department of Australia. So what usually happened in the last few years was that for a 491 visa, we had to normally apply with a particular state. Whichever state had that applicant's occupation and demand, we would see whether the applicant meets the specific criteria of the state, and if they did meet the criteria, we would lodge an application, and once the application for nomination was accepted or approved, we would get an invitation to apply for it from the Department of Home Affairs. Now, what has happened, especially with Tasmania this time, is that they're saying you cannot lodge directly with our state for a 491 nomination. You just indicate Tasmania on your expression of interest, and we will send you an invitation to apply for a nomination. Now, this is different. They are not going to send you an invitation to apply for a visa. That is something that will be sent by the Department of Home Affairs once Tasmania approves your nomination. So first, Tasmania will send an invitation to apply for a 491 nomination. So those who are thinking, why am I not getting an invitation to apply for a nomination yet? Please rest assured, the Tasmanian government will be sending out those invitations. But I know that the larger concern with people is that why am I not getting a nomination invitation from DHA? So my answer to them again is that 491 state-sponsored visa does not work that way. The DHA is not going to send out an invitation to apply for a visa because you have a high score. You will have to first proactively get a nomination from the state. Now, all states are going to have the different processes as far as applying for the nominations is concerned. For example, Tasmania will be sending out invitations for nominations. NSW could be taking up, depending on what region you're applying for, they could be directly telling you that, okay, fine, here's an application portal on our website, go ahead and file your application for nomination. So it'll all be working on a state to state basis. Now, with this, I'd also like to mention here that a lot of people are unfortunately evaluating their or assessing their chances for Australian immigration based on the Tasmania's list. So I heard a lot of people say, oh, our occupation is not on Tasmania's list, so that means we are not eligible. Please understand, Tasmania is not the only state. Tasmania is one of the states that is offering nominations. NSW is going to open up, and NSW has got about 13 regions, different regions that will have they'll be inviting applications for nominations. Other states will be opening up for nominations as well. So you have a lot to look forward to in terms of nominations. So I hope I have kind of made myself very, very clear about the answer to your question, when will I get an invitation for a 491? Again, you will not get an invitation if the state wants to invite the applications by sending out invitations for nominations. So the state will be first sending you an invite for a nomination. Once the nomination application is successful, then the DHA will be sending you an invitation to apply for a visa. Otherwise, you being an applicant for a 491 state-sponsored visa will have to first apply for a nomination with the particular state whose criteria you're meeting, and in which state you have your occupation in demand. And once the nomination application is approved, then you will get an invitation to apply for a visa from DHA. So I hope that settles a lot of concerns and uncertainty around there. Please continue sending me your CVs on caanwings@gmail.com. That is CAANWINGS@gmail.com, or you can give us a call on 78498 78498. minute. We hope to be back with you next week with some interesting news about nominations. So stay tuned, subscribe to our channel, and see you again.